Nintendo's at it again with their copyright abuse. What a shock. This time a channel called Deoxys Prime with over 160,000 subscribers had to remove every single upload of Nintendo soundtracks on their channel because they received over 500 plus copyright claims from Nintendo. Now if you think that's fucking ridiculous, a YouTube channel called Gilvasunner has that beat. They also uploaded Nintendo OSTs and got over 1,000 copyright strikes. That has to be a world record, right? Because that is just insane. Now, Deoxys Prime doesn't just upload Nintendo OSTs, but they also upload OSTs from developers such as Sega and Namco. And guess what, Nintendo? These other companies don't seem to mind their OSTs being uploaded onto YouTube. And I already know the argument. It's Nintendo's intellectual property. They have the right to take down these videos if they want to. Yes, I know Nintendo has the right to take down these videos. I am not arguing against the legality of that. What I am going to argue, though, however, is Nintendo does not make it easy whatsoever, for the most part, to listen to their soundtracks. They hardly, if ever, put their soundtracks on streaming services such as Spotify or Apple Music. They may include, with some games, the ability to listen to soundtracks, but really, how convenient is that? You're gonna carry your Switch around just to listen to fucking music? I know the Switch isn't that much of a hassle to take around with you, obviously, but what's more convenient? Listening to these songs on your Switch or on your phone? The answer should be very clear. So this is why people turn to places like YouTube to seek out these songs. If Nintendo were this copyright happy, but they provided you with easy and accessible ways to listen to their OSTs, I'd be like, yeah, it sucks that they're taking down YouTube uploads of these songs, but you still have these other avenues to listen to their songs, easily and accessible. But you just cannot be fucked to do that. Nintendo really hates convenience for whatever ass-backwards reason. And this leads me to talk about emulation. When you don't give a single fuck at all about preserving your old games, naturally that's going to go into the hands of your fans, who want to play these old games, and want to have an easier way to play these old games that is not taking out their old console, finding a copy of this old game, and playing it that way. The GameCube is a prime example of this. Nintendo does not give a fuck whatsoever about preserving the GameCube's library. Hell, the Wii U is getting way more game preservation than the GameCube, a console that flopped way harder, but is still getting way more attention from Nintendo. And thanks to Nintendo not providing a way to play these games on modern hardware, a lot of GameCube games have skyrocketed in price in recent years, and most people don't want to pay those fucking prices, unless you're crazy enough to pay for these prices like I am. But if you're not crazy enough to pay for these prices, you're naturally going to turn to emulation. But Nintendo doesn't want you to do that. But Nintendo, what the fuck else are people going to do if you don't provide them with ways to play these games on modern hardware? You either don't provide a solution to the problem whatsoever, or give these half-ass solutions like a stupid online service where you only trickle out a few old games at a time. How much fucking money is being siphoned away from you by people playing old games that you can't be fucked to preserve on emulators? I doubt much, if any at all. Even if one wants to buy these games legitimately, they're buying it secondhand, not from you. You're not making any money off of these old games anymore, so there is no reason for you to be so hell-bent on taking down these websites that provide people with easy and convenient ways to play these old games. Unless you're going to preserve these games, but clearly you have no intention of doing that. There are plenty of old and obscure games that Nintendo does not give a fuck about whatsoever that are never going to see the light of day again. So unless they have the original hardware these games were made for, and on top of that they have copies of these games, they're probably going to turn to emulation. And there is nothing fucking wrong with that, because game preservation is like rock bottom on Nintendo's list of priorities. I was watching a pretty dumb video from A Dose of Buckley a few weeks ago where he was making fun of people who were upset that a fan-made version of the SpongeBob movie was taken down by Viacom. He argued that since this fan-made movie didn't skew away from the original movie all too much in the sense that the dialogue was mostly the same, Viacom was well within their rights to take this down. Now again, I'm not going to argue against the legality of this. SpongeBob is Viacom's intellectual property after all, and if they want to take this fan-made project down, they are well within their right to do so, and anyone arguing against this point is dumb. But I look at it this way. How much money is this fan-made movie going to siphon away from Viacom in reality? If one wants wants to watch the SpongeBob movie, they're going to watch the real movie, not this fan-made reenactment, whatever the fuck this movie was that was on YouTube. I really don't think fan-made projects like this pose any threat against the companies that own the rights of the property these fan-made projects are based on. And with Nintendo, it's the same exact thing. If one wants to play Mario or Zelda or Metroid or any Nintendo franchise, they're going to play the real thing. And yes, there is of course a significant player base for these fan-made projects based around Nintendo's intellectual property, but let's just think about this realistically. How many players are these fan-made projects siphoning away from the real thing? I highly doubt it's a large number at all, if these people even exist. If one plays a fan-made Mario game or a fan-made Zelda game, they're probably still going to buy the next Mario game whenever that comes out, or Breath of the Wild 2 when that comes out. You just fucking hate your fan base. You really love stomping all over the hard work of people who put so much time and dedication into these fan projects. Your bottom line is not going to be affected by people playing fan games, or people emulating old games that you don't provide ways to play on modern hardware, or listening to OSTs from your games on YouTube. Capcom has several Resident Evil soundtracks on Apple Music. I like listening to some tracks from time to time. They seem more than happy to provide their fans with an easy and convenient way to listen to these soundtracks. And guess what? These soundtracks are also on YouTube, uploaded by fans, and Capcom doesn't seem to give a shit. Because while Capcom owns the rights to these OSTs, I'm sure they also acknowledge that fans uploading these OSTs onto YouTube doesn't pose a significant threat towards them financially. Oh, and speaking of Capcom and Resident Evil, RE4 Remake hype, by the way. So Nintendo, please take notes from these other video game companies and stop being so fucking stubborn. So long as you don't provide ways to conveniently listen to your soundtracks officially, so long as you don't provide ways to officially play old games on your modern hardware, this problem is going to persist. And to set the record straight, I'm not for pirating Nintendo Switch games. I don't care if you do, I'm not going to scold you, but I can understand why Nintendo would take those emulators down. But again, when it comes to old games that Nintendo can't be fucked to preserve, I don't give a shit whatsoever. Pirate those games all you fucking want while Nintendo continues to whine and cry over it and be completely oblivious as to why people would turn to emulation to play these old games. Oh gee, I fucking wonder why, Nintendo. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.